let's finalize our shot camera. We're just about finished. What we'll do now is focus on the camera itself. Let's go ahead and select it. We'll turn off trajectories. We'll switch back to parameters underneath the motion panel. And now what we want to do is make sure that the camera focuses on our aircraft. And we want to offset our keyframes so it happens at the right time so things don't look so robotic and unnatural. So let's go ahead and lock down a rotation key of our camera on frame 75. Just go to our PRS parameters rollout and set a rotation key. Now a few frames after, or I should actually say several frames, because again we want to offset the timing of our camera so that it's almost as if the cameraman is trying to keep up with the aircraft. So on frame 137, let's go to our rotate manipulator. I'm going to rotate it over the camera, that is, and then rotate it up in the x-axis. I'd recommend turning off angle snap so we can get to a precise rotational value. So just press the A key to do that. But here's what happens now. Now the camera swoops around and it's focused on the aircraft and it blends very well. So the aircraft is really starting to take off at this point after 160 or so, or 150. So let's go to about 165, and we'll go ahead and rotate our camera to still focus on the aircraft. Go ahead and rotate it down a bit. Here's what we end up with. Very nice. On 190, again, we'll go ahead and rotate our camera over. Let's go ahead and rotate it down. And we'll have it continue to follow the aircraft all the way to the end of the animation. So on 220, let's go ahead and rotate it over. And we could also rotate it down in the x-axis. We're trying to center the camera as best we can. But we don't want it perfectly centered, of course, because we want the camera to truly feel like a handheld type camera. Alright, so the next thing we'll want is a zoom in, because the ship is pretty far in the distance, but we still want the audience to remain focused. The camera has the best seat in the house, so we want to make sure that that idea sells. So now it's time to animate the camera zoom in, and we could use our field of view parameter to do that. Alright, so let's go ahead and think about the best time to have it zoom in, because we want it to be fast enough where it really feels like a dynamic action. So let's say on about frame 190, just as the ship is about to really take off, let's go ahead and hold down Shift and right click on our field of view parameter to lock in a keyframe. And then just a few frames after, we want a fast zoom in. So on about frame 205, let's go ahead and increase our field of view, or decrease it to zoom in a bit more. We may need to adjust the camera by rotating it also on 205. So let's rotate it over, and then we'll zoom in more. Not too much. If we rotate a bit more, we can have the camera centered better. We could also rotate it up slightly higher, and that should look pretty nice. Great. And now what we want is for the camera to still remain focused on the aircraft at the end of the animation. So we'll just go ahead and rotate the camera over in the y-axis and rotate it up in the x. Alright, let's go ahead and see what this does. We'll now focus on our shot camera. Let's press Alt-W. We'll grab some popcorn and hit play. So we have this really nice transition from the start of the ship to the back of it, and then take a look. It starts to take off, and then we zoom in to make sure it doesn't get too far away from us. Really exciting. How cool is that? So our animation is most certainly coming together. I'd say at the beginning of the animation we're still losing that handheld type of feeling, and that's simply because there is just a two-axis transition from 0 to about frame 100 when we focus on the back of our aircraft. We should get a third axis in there, and that's the z-axis, to add a bop, almost as if the cameraman is stepping and he's trying to keep the camera stable. So that's our last task to finish up. Let's go ahead and get right to it. We'll move back to our perspective view. Let's take a look at our camera again. We'll go ahead and select it. Go to our move tool. And this is going to be just a random thing because we want to create the illusion of irregularity for this to seem realistic. So on frame 10, let's go ahead and move the the camera down just slightly. And then we could have it move up a few frames after. Remember, the cameraman's trying to keep the camera stable as best as he can. Then on about frame 40, we'll go ahead and bring the camera down. A few frames after that, let's say on about frame 56, we could go ahead and bring up the camera. And then on about, let's say 67, we'll go ahead and just drop the camera down a bit more. Alright, so what we've done is we've created a nice little bop, so it looks as if the camera is still trying to keep framing as best as it can, but due to irregularities in nature, due to weight and gravity influencing the cameraman, of course, stability is going to be pretty tough. And that's exactly the type of look we want. Let's go ahead and play this back to make sure this feels right. Great. Alright, so take a look at that. We have created a really cool shot camera sequence. Should be really pleased with our work. This has been a really fun exercise. And we're just about finished. The next step is to animate the fueling line falling. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and do a final pass where we just make sure that we're satisfied with everything before we go in and create a preview so we can play this back in real time and make sure we're happy with our shot before we're ready to move on to the next section. So we're just about done.